Hello, we are halfway through 2024, so I've gone through everything that I've read in the past 6 months, which are 60 or so books, and picked out 10 of my absolute favorites that I want to recommend to you and encourage you to read, and hopefully you'll be inspired to pick up one or more of these books because I found all of them really impactful personally, that they've made me reflect upon my own life and my own past and my own ideas about things, and shown me such a different point of view and taught me things and made me want to learn more. But I also think they are all examples of truly excellent storytelling. So if you have read any of these books, I would love to discuss them with you, but I would also love to hear your own recommendations. What are your favorite things that you have read so far this year, whether it's new or old? Most of these books are fairly recent, that were published this year or last year, and some of them have been very celebrated. They've been nominated for prizes, and others are slightly more obscure that I've not heard many or any people talking about. So first off, there is Northwoods by Daniel Mason, which is a novel I went into with so many expectations because I'd heard so much about it, and I love it when a novel can really surprise you and delight you, even though you've read so much about it. So following the story of this plot of land in New England and a house which is built upon it, through the centuries and the many different people who inhabit it, and which at first slightly caught me like off guard, and but then I just like sort of went with it, and as it like progressed from story to story, as the characters kept changing, as the inhabitants of this house kept changing, and I got so immersed in their different stories because not only are there different so many different characters throughout a long period of time, but also the mode of storytelling changes as it goes along, and it was so engaging and like really kept me on my toes to figure out what was happening in the present time that it was depicting, but also picking up on little pieces of people who inhabited this place in the past, of items that were left behind, but also how many of them still have a presence in this location. And so it is just so imaginative and playful, but also really serious in how it engages with history and transformations in the country and environmental changes over time. And it was just an absolute delight to read. Lublin by Manya Wilkinson. This is a novel about three Jewish boys about a century ago who embark on a journey to the Polish city of Lublin to sell some brushes because they want to make some money. And we follow their journey as they have lots of really fun and engaging discussions with each other about life and literature and small town gossip and girls that they fancy. And so there's just this great camaraderie, but also like an antagonism which grows between them. So it's really like complicated friendship and connection that they have with each other, but also with their personal Jewish history, and that enters into the story in such an engaging and fascinating way. And as they continue on with this journey, it grows increasingly surreal and strange. And I was just so surprised and delighted where this story went, but was also just absolutely charmed by the personalities of these boys and their interactions with each other, and following them as they go along. And so this novel just really surprised me, and I think it's such a like powerful and interesting and dynamic storytelling that is such a pleasure to read, but is also really thoughtful. Tom Lake by Ann Patchett. This is a novel which has been widely read and celebrated and loved, but also been slightly divisive in that some readers have found the plot of it quite dull, which is understandable in a way because on the surface there's not too much drama in this story, as it follows a woman at home during lockdown. She's a farmer with her husband and also a mother to three daughters who are in their 20s, who have returned home for the lockdown. And she's reflecting upon her life and her past, her early experiences acting, and an early love affair that she had. And this really took me by surprise. I think the meaning and message of it really crept up on me because inevitably, as we get older, we start to contemplate, different crossroads in our life. And what if I had made a different decision? And this is a natural thing that occurs so much. And I think what's so extraordinary about this story is it shows someone who has really come to terms with this and is really happy with her choices and is really glad with the way that things have gone, but still also, thinks about the past in this way and how these were like necessary stages that she had to go through in order to arrive at a place of contentment in our life, which is, I think, something that so many of us go through and that we struggle with a lot. And in order to depict that kind of contentment, I think takes a really special kind of writing and really, really excellent storytelling and how it evokes her life in this really complicated, interesting way. And there are really exciting surprises along the way of things that she didn't realize or understand, which now she does, talking about them and things that are revealed to her over a period of time, but predominantly, just depicting her life as it stands and how she's arrived at this period in her life, which she gives her a lot of strength and happiness to carry on. I think it's a wonderful novel. River East, River West by Aube Lescure. And this is a novel that I enjoyed so much, the experience of reading it, but I'm almost like surprised at how much it has stuck with me, and its ideas and themes and larger meaning have impacted me in the long term because as opposed to Tom Lake, this is an example of characters that are really struggling with their lives and what they want in their lives and are continuing to do that. And so we follow them as an adolescent girl as she's coming of age in Shanghai. Her mother is American and white, and the story begins with her marrying a Chinese man that she does not approve of, and so there's an immediate conflict between them. But we also follow her stepfather and his past and how he's come to this point in his life and how his desires and aspirations have been thwarted in a way, but how he's also found inspiration and happiness in other ways. And we follow them as they make their uneven progress towards the future together as a family. And it shows this really complex family dynamic, and I just grew to really care about these characters who have a lot of issues but which are all, I think, really relatable in different ways. And it's so fascinating how the mother's story progresses, how she's tried to recreate herself and the real struggle she's had with that over time, and how this gives a complicated look at nationality and race and gender dynamics. It's so engaging and such a pleasure to read, but also really insightful in how it explores all this subject matter. My Friends by Hisham Matar. This is such a powerful story about a central character who's been caught in a state of limbo for most of his life, having to improvise a life after a tragic event. He grew up in Libya and moved to the UK to study, and there something really momentous occurs, which means that he's cut off from his homeland and his family, and we follow him as he reflects upon his life and his connections with other people, the very strong friends that he made, but how he's had to improvise and build a life for himself in London, but also how he has found such strength and sustenance through literature and art. And there's so much in this novel which engages with these different art forms and how they provide inspiration and sustenance for him in this strange improvised life that he's had to create for himself. And it's so powerful how this keyed me into events from the past, which I wasn't aware of before, and which I've now read so much more about. And also reading Hisham Matar's memoir, The Return, after reading this book, and how his own life intersects with this story, this fictional story, is so fascinating. And it's just such a powerful book. A Flat Place by Noreen Masud. This is a memoir that both captured my heart and made me think about my own personal past and history in a much more dynamic way, because while we can get caught up in thinking about the past and different paths we might have taken, we can also get caught up in mulling over the pain and the hurt that we've experienced in the past. And this is a really difficult thing to deal with. And I think this memoir takes such a creative approach to dealing with this, because it shows how she follows a path of growing up in Pakistan in very constrained circumstances with a very difficult and complicated and interesting father, and moves to a place where she explores landscapes that she finds nurturing and inspiring, and is a way of accepting and dealing with all of this personal history, but also letting it go and understanding that she can't know everything about it, and that these memories don't need to be solidified and interpreted and moved past, but they can just be a part of her life. And it's such a interestingly different point of view that I've only experienced in another book, this really interesting book called In Memory of Memory by Maria Stepanova. And coincidentally, I've heard a number of people discussing that book recently. It was such an interesting book, but this memoir also offers such a refreshing approach in a very personal way of how to deal with all of these memories, and to find different areas in our life that are right for us, that we all have our own personal ways of dealing with the world and inhabiting it. And I just found this so beautiful. And also the very first chapter begins with a long quote of my favorite novel of all time, The Waves by Virginia Woolf. I also really like how the cover of this paperback matches my top. Enter Ghost by Isabella Hammad. This is a novel which was shortlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction, but also very recently it won the Encore Award from the Royal Society of Literature, a prize that celebrates second novels. And this is such a powerful story following a woman named Sonia as she is dealing with her own personal past and history, and a much larger history, but also very much dealing with the present as she returns to the Middle East and her homeland after having worked as an actress in England for many years, to visit her sister there, but also gets involved in a production of Hamlet that's occurring on the West Bank, and how it shows her personal struggles and things that she is dealing with in her own personal and romantic life, and her family life, but also with the larger conflict that's occurring in the Middle East. And it shows this from such a powerful and personal perspective that I found so impactful and moving, but also it's just really joyous how it shows how these different individuals come together to create this production, and the real collaborative effort of the theater as an art form, as an act of vanity and as a political act of that has a larger message and meaning beyond the individual production, and how really all great art can be translated and adapted and renewed in many different situations. Bad Habit by Alana S. Portero, translated by Faye, Letham. This is a Spanish novel that I read very recently and which I found so impactful. It's the coming-of-age story of a young trans woman who comes from a very impoverished neighborhood, and how in Madrid she finds community and found family, and following her journey. And I think there is so much which is misunderstood about trans lives, and so reading the actual story and experiences of trans people, I think, is the only way to combat that. And this story is so striking and original and surprising in a lot of areas, because she finds alliances and supportive people in areas and places that she didn't expect, but also finding love and inspiration and passion in different places, but also coming against so much conflict, and the way this describes body dysmorphia, but also body euphoria when she's able to fully inhabit who she is and fully inhabit her body. It is such a joy, but there is also so much about this story which is heartbreaking and moving, and so I found it so inspirational and informative and just a wonderful story. James by Percival Everett. There is a special pleasure in anticipating reading a book so much, but then finding the actual experience of reading that book delivers everything that I was hoping for and so much more, because I've talked about this book so much, and I'll gladly continue to do so, because I think it's extraordinary. It's the actual experience of reading it I found so gripping and involving, but also I'm still thinking about so much of what this story does, which is so clever, of taking the story of the adventures of Huckleberry Finn and telling it from the point of view of Jim, and how this shines a light of this on this era of history in such a dynamic way, but also on this classic piece of American literature, and how it follows Jim's journey as this really harrowing journey of escaping from slavery and the heartbreak of leaving his family behind and wanting to reconnect with him, but also the very complicated connection he forms with Huck Finn over time, and how this shows that from a very different point of view, and how it celebrates Mark Twain's writing, but also slyly subverts it in different ways. There's a scene in this where, because so much in Tom Sawyer and Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, the boys are kind of spying upon events, and in one scene in this, Jim is spying upon what occurs in the home of a slave when the slave master visits there, and that scene is just stuck with me so much, but also it's just incredible how it evokes Jim's life as someone who is really forming his sense of self and has a desire to write and tell his own story and engage with literature, but is also roused to justified anger going through what he does, and wanting to reconnect and be with his family again. And how Everett spoke about this, I went to hear him speak about this book, and how he talked about how he was connecting with the life of his own father. I found so moving and beautiful, and yeah, what an incredible book. And finally, there is Not a River by Selva Almada, translated by Annie McDermott, and there is also a special pleasure in not expecting all that much from a book. Honestly, I wasn't sure I was gonna enjoy this Argentinian novel, but once I started reading it, I found it so involving, and I've continued to find it really haunting. And I've kept thinking about it, following the story of three men that go on a fishing trip, and the way that their past haunts them, and as a continued presence in their life, but also dealing with the present. And there's something very like charming about their interactions with each other, but also something very creepy that continues to amplify over the course of the story that I found increasingly intense and powerful. And it's a very short book, but I think it makes a really big impact in this way, and it's just continued to linger in my mind. So I think it's extraordinary, and I'm so looking forward to exploring more of Almada's work. So those are my 10 favorites of the year so far. Here they all are, but do let me know if you go and read any of these books, and then come back and let me know what you think about them, or if you've read them already. Please let me know what you think, if you agree with me or disagree with me in the comments below. I would love to hear that, but it'd be great to get your recommendations, and what are the best things that you have read recently? What am I missing out on, and what do I still need to read? I would love to hear about that. But I hope you're doing well, and your reading year has been going well so far, and I will speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.